How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Masters of Horror, Season 1, Episode 1, Incident on and Off a Mountain Road. Now, this is the actual Episode 1. If you guys have this complete season DVD, they put John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns as the first one, because that's the best episode of the season, but Incident on and Off the Mountain Road is the actual first episode, going by when they aired and how they were originally released, but, you know, Cigarette Burns gets pushed to the top, obviously, on this DVD. But anyway, this is directed by Don Coscarelli, a really great filmmaker with a pretty big cult following. He's best known for the Phantasm movies. He directed the first 4 of them. He also did some really cool stuff like John Dies at the End, Bubba Hotep, and although it's a fantasy, not horror, he also directed The Beastmaster. So, some pretty cool stuff in his catalog, and I always was just really, glad to see more from these directors I really did like. Speaking of Bubba Hotep, though, Bubba Hotep was based on a short story by Joe R. Lansdale. And you know how Masters of Horror, they like to play off things. So the Stuart Gordon episode in here is based on H.P. Lovecraft. So Don Coscarelli's story is also going to be based on a short story by Joe R. Lansdale as well. So this is a Joe R. Lansdale adaptation, which is pretty cool to have now 2 of those by Coscarelli. This story stars Bree Turner as your final girl character, and the monster here will be played by John DeSantis, and of course, it's a Coscarelli film. We get to check in on our good friend Angus Scrim, who you guys, if you've seen Phantasm, know him as the tall man who reprised his role in every film in the series, and it's great to see him in a different role. So let's go ahead and jump right into the plot of this thing. It's pretty fun. No major spoilers, though. I do want to say my piece on a few of the different plot points, and I also want to make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what this episode's about, but no major spoilers. Let's just jump in. This opens up with a girl driving down a mountain road, hence the title. She's driving fast and she's, obviously something has happened. She takes a sharp corner, crashes in to a car that for some reason is parked in the middle of the road. She gets knocked out because of the crash, and when she wakes up, she investigates, finds the car empty, except for some blood, which is never a good sign. Door's open, no one's there though. Obviously on a mountain, can't get any signal, and she goes and she starts calling, "Hey, is anyone there? Sorry I hit your car, where is everybody?" Trying to find someone, help, help. And she looks out in the woods and sees someone. Okay, it's probably the owner of the car, probably get some help, hopefully this will all be good. Well, it's not exactly the owner of the car. It's this guy who we'd later find out his name is Mr. Moonface. Pretty cool name there. A big, tall, bulky guy, really strong and threatening looking, and he's got super pale skin, hence the Mr. Moonface name. Now, he's big and tall and scary, but what gives it away that he's dangerous is he's actually, in his hand, dragging around the owner of the other car. So, he's definitely a bad guy. She runs into the woods, and you get a very fun, elaborate chase scene for a good chunk of the episode that eventually winds up with her discovering Mr. Moonface's lair, and inside the lair is a crazy old man that's spent too much time here. That's Angus Scrimm's character, and she has to figure out how to defeat this monster. And as she's running around, you see that she knows a lot more about survival than you might think. Well, how does she know so much about survival and defending herself? Well, we jump back in time to her on this, I think it's a first date with this guy. And in these flashback sequences, you get to meet her husband. So on the first date, he's talking about how the world is more messed up and people don't pay attention to it, and how you really need survival skills. And you see he's a conspiracy theorist and a prepper, and on their first date he's talking about things like human trafficking, which is not typically first date conversation. But he's talking about all this stuff messed up with the world, and even despite the strange conversation, he somehow manages to wind up marrying this girl. They somehow work through this crazy prepper conspiracy theorist thing he's got going. But after she marries the guy, turns out his issues don't just subside. He moves her to a cabin way out in the middle of nowhere. He spends more and more of his time with his prepper friends, and he gets more and more obsessed and more judgmental at the girl for not being as good as she possibly can. She's not the best shot. She can't twirl her knife right. And the issues that were clearly there before marriage have gotten bigger and are pulling this relationship apart. So it's a sad, broken relationship story, but what she learned there is helping her out in the present. And I guess that's what we should talk about first when we get into more specifics for this episode. Let's talk about the girl. As she's running through the woods, you see her do things, make some smart decisions, and set up little traps. And this is a lot better than most people would do. I mean, look up YouTube videos of people getting surprised. Half the time someone jumps out in a clown mask, they fall down, and they would not do well in a scary movie. She's doing pretty good, but I think the thing is with this is after movies like You're Next and seeing all these, crazy, powerful final girl characters, audience have come to expect a lot, and when she does make a mistake, you're kind of like, you're supposed to be perfect. But the thing is, and what Coscarelli's trying to go for, is she's someone who was trained but didn't agree with her training, didn't want to be obsessed with it, and ultimately decided to end the training. So she's about 60% of, say, the Your Next girl. She has got a lot down. She's a lot better than most people, but she's not perfect. She'll make a trap, and maybe that trap won't work. Maybe it'll mess up, and she'll run through the woods screaming and tear and not always make the best decisions. But the thing is, she's better, but she isn't perfect, and I think that was intentional. Although that being said, there are a couple frustrating moments, not too many, but like early on, the guy throws a knife at her, and she runs away. The knife landed in a tree right by her, and it was just one of those moments like, pick it up, grab the knife so at least he doesn't have it. But, yeah, no, her missing that knife in the beginning was a little frustrating, but like I said, she's only about 60% of the Your Next girl. She doesn't have all the training, she isn't perfect, but is she good enough? And that's going to be what we see. However, I do wonder, this, I believe, was released a few years before Your Next. Maybe this was one of the things, maybe the guy who made Your Next was watching, was like, what if we cranked it up to 100%? I don't know, I don't know if he ever saw this, but yeah, so she's pretty good, but she does make some mistakes here and there, and some definite ones that you're like, ooh, that was not what she meant to do. But that's part of it. I just don't know if everyone will get down with it. The other character here, the big one, Mr. Moonface. He's a cool, big villain. He's a really big guy, the kind that goes and grunts and stuff. The thing is, when you first see him pop up in front of the moon, it's a really cool shot. He's a cool-looking character, and he's a good bad guy to fight. At first, I thought he was supposed to be a vampire, but he doesn't, other than being pale and, he's at nighttime, he doesn't do any vampire-y things. Actually, if you look at what he's doing things very methodically, and he's arranging things very ritualistically, and you get to see more of his method of operation when you get to see his lair, and overall, it's more things that just a serial killer would do, so you keep expecting this guy to be supernatural, but he's not. He's a ritualistic serial killer that just happens to be a freaking big muscular dude. And overall, he's really cool, but he's not a vampire, don't think that, but still a really fun villain. And then, of course, I have to talk about Angus Scrim. Angus Scrim, we know him as the tall man, tall and imposing, and I'm glad Coscarelli got him back. It's always great to see Angus Scrim, but he also made the conscious decision, I'm not just going to give him another tall man role with a different name. Angus Scrim is an old guy who's been in this cabin for way too long and has gone completely insane. And he'll show up and he'll talk about chocolates and candy, and he'll want to sing songs and talk about, people, and he's like, oh, Mr. Moonface, gotta be good for Mr. Moonface. And it's really different to see him not be imposing and instead being wacky, and it's cool to see Angus Scrim nail this role that's not at all like his tall man role. A really good sign of a good actor, giving them something completely different, yet having them pull it off really great. And it is cool to see him there singing songs, and then the final girl's like, don't sing songs, I have to get out of here, you're gonna draw his attention. And it was really fun, and I do love to see him in this, and Angus Scrim is great. But yeah, I gotta talk about Coscarelli. Now, Coscarelli, probably a really good choice for the show. Right before, I think I mentioned earlier, he made Bubba Hotep, and Bubba Hotep was a super low-budget movie that pulled off a ton despite its budget. Really good. Bruce Campbell as Elvis that secretly is secretly still alive, and he's fighting a mummy in his retirement home. A great, awesome, bonkers script that they produced for next to nothing. And with Masters of Horror, it consistently has a problem with low budget, so you get him in here, and he'll pull out a really great product despite, having a TV budget. Now, that being said, this isn't as big and crazy as Coscarelli's other work. No parallel dimensions to crazy, portals to crazy worlds. There's no soy sauce. There's no mummies and no babies being born from cows. Nothing that crazy. It is a lower budget and also less time, and I think that probably is the big factor for Coscarelli because he doesn't need a huge budget. But for what it is, he pulled it off a really solid job despite being a sort of standard slasher-style chase and escape story, and not a crazy Coscarelli surrealist nightmare. He still did a really good and really solid job. Now, that being said, you do see a little bit of his standard mannerisms. Coscarelli's a director that's A-okay with having a ton of black on the screen, and it's really cool to see dark, creepy woods. He does these shots really, really well, and of course, he does bring in his drills. Coscarelli loves killing people with some drills there. And you do get a lot of his good stuff. That being said, the cinematography in this, there is a lot of handheld camera work, and in turn it shakes more than you usually see from Coscarelli. That may just be to make it cheaper and quicker. You get more of this handheld style. But that being said, not the best. Coscarelli, I don't think he used handheld too often in his movies, so it is a little different here. But that being said, the thing with this episode is it's kind of simple, but really solidly built, you know. You do get some craziness near the ending. There's a fun little shake-up that happens at the end that you're like, okay, I didn't see that coming, and it brings a little bit of the Coscarelli craziness. But that being said, it's, you know, a solidly built episode despite being really simple, and I really can appreciate for that. You know, you want to make a small, low-budget TV show thing kind of quickly. Coscarelli came and gave you a really good product, just sadly, no wacky parallel dimensions. But that being said, this is a pretty good episode of Masters of Horror. I definitely recommend it as one of the better ones. Not up there with Cigarette Burns, but definitely the top third of the show. And it's pretty good, and if you want to see more Coscarelli, this is a great way to do it. And if you're slasher fans, this isn't exactly a slasher. I mean, there's two girls in this movie running away from the killer, so it's not really slasher exactly, but it does have a lot of your slasher fanfare, you know, your chase sequences and escaping, and so I'd recommend it to the slasher fans, even though I don't know if I'd actually call this a slasher or not. Maybe it's a low body count slasher. Anyway, it's pretty good, and I'd recommend it. To everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. I don't know how long I rambled about this, but it's good. Thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You're really helping the channel out. I'll put a relevant playlist at the bottom if you want to see more. On this channel, when I talk about movies, I tend to talk about like 95% horror movies. So if you like this, I probably got more for you to check out. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now. Have a good day.